Sunday papers. We have with us broadcaster Hector O. We have Timmy McCarthy as well, basketball commentator, former Irish basketball captain, multi-capped international. Gents, you're very welcome. Great to have you with us.
Hi guys.
Good to be here.
I will give people a look at the front pages before we dig in. As you can imagine, Raheem Sterling's rather confused face is on the front page of a lot of them. So Sunday Times here, and it's Sterling misses open goal and Ederson blunders as Guardiola pays for tactical tinkering against Lyon. City blow it again is the headline. It's a picture of Sterling just looking around in disbelief after he's missed that chance late on. Beneath that, FAI wants quarantine exemption for game in Sofia. So, and this is going to become a thing for a couple of different sports, including the rugby when it gets back up and running. But the FAI are in talks with the government. Basically, in short, they want the game against Bulgaria in the Nations League to go ahead in Sofia as planned at the beginning of September, as long as the Irish government provides an exemption from quarantine, because they have a game shortly afterwards against Finland in Dublin on September 6th. So obviously they couldn't quarantine and play that game in Dublin on September 6th. Owens, that's Gary Owens, has been dealing with Nefet, trying to secure the dispensation. We're getting a sympathetic hearing, said Owens. The likely scenario is that we will play the game in Bulgaria. Sunday Independent then, the main picture is an interview they have inside with Sonia O'Sullivan and Paul Kimmage after the gold rush. Sonia O'Sullivan has always had a purpose, a path to follow, but as she reflects on her extraordinary life and career with Paul Kimmage, she finds herself asking what's next. That's inside. And beneath that, it's Man City 1, Lyon 3 again. Dembele double leaves City stunned. Back page of the Mail on Sunday. That picture of Sterling is too good to leave out for plenty of editors, I would think. It's Sterling again sitting at the front post, or the back post in his case, and just looking around in disbelief. Pep's agony, it's Groundhog Day for Guardiola as calamitous City caught cold by Lyon. And then, as Neil and I were saying a few moments ago, the type of story we'll have to get used to, I suspect, over the coming months, and well, hopefully not years, but certainly a year ahead. COVID-19 continues to undermine efforts to restart Irish sport. A Dublin Senior Championship match, the latest to fall as a result of the virus. This was a Raheny player who tested positive. They were due to play Plunkets today. He was completely asymptomatic, which is the other mad aspect of this disease. You can go from asymptomatic to death and everything in between. He was asymptomatic, but it's been caught and the match won't go ahead for now. Have the Observer here, and it's Hog Heaven, the Premiership back up and running. This is Stuart Hogg scoring yesterday. Leaders Exeter pick up where they left off as Premiership rugby returns. Sunday Mirror Sport, again, it's Raheem Sterling in disbelief. Sterling misses sitter as Pep gets French lesson in Lisbon. Guardiola is the headline there. Dems the breaks, as in Moussa Dembele. City crash out of Europe after a harsh VAR call helps Lyon to victory. And Rio Ferdinand claims Ole is your man for United, EUR, as in Europa League. And then we have back page of the Sun. Interesting story, top left, it's Javi versus Poche. It would seem Mauricio Pochettino is set to go head-to-head with Javi for the Barcelona job. They're still reeling from their 8-2 loss on Friday. And again, it's demolition, 2-goal Moussa Dembele mobbed by Lyon teammates as French side KO Manchester City. Bellyache, Pep KO'd by Moussa, VAR and Sterling miss. And let's win for Fergie, roars Ole. They're playing Sevilla this evening. Gents, we'll come to the football in a few moments' time. There is one story, sorry, I know we were talking via WhatsApp group today about various stories. There is one story I just saw late on, I'm just going to mention briefly and then we'll carry on as planned. It's in the Sunday Business Post. I just saw this before coming in. It's Aaron Rogan with the story. Former Connacht player sues IRFU and Aviva over a series of head injuries. There's not so much we can say about this because it is very much now in the hands of the courts. Dave Mcsharry sustained 4 concussions in a 12-month period, which led to his forced retirement in 2016. A professional rugby player who was forced to retire after sustaining repeated concussions has launched a legal action against the IRFU and Aviva Insurance. This is Dave Mcsharry. He played centre for Connacht. He was 26 when he was advised by a neurologist to end his career in 2016. He'd had 4 concussions in a 12-month period, so he has initiated High Court proceedings against the IRFU and the insurer. The piece points out that rugby players who leave the sport due to a career-ending injury can be paid multiples of their salary through their insurance policies, but players who retire due to concussion generally only do so when they've suffered a number of head injuries, meaning their condition may instead be classified as a repetitive injury by insurers. So that presumably is at the heart of the case. A spokesperson for the RFU said it couldn't comment on any legal matter. Barry O'Driscoll is quoted in the piece. He was on the International Rugby Board's he was their medical chief in 2011. And he doesn't believe Mcsharry should have been allowed to sustain 4 concussions in a single season. He says there's no scientific proof regarding what stage you are at increased danger, but what is accepted is that coming off a concussion, you are more at risk of a second concussion, so there's no way a player should be allowed to come back 3 times in a year, was his opinion. But that rests with the course now. It's an interesting case and may set a precedent if it goes one way or the other. So that's Dave Mcsharry, 4 concussions in a 12-month period, led to his forced retirement in 2016. He's now suing the RFU and he's suing Aviva over the situation. That's on page 5 of the Business Post. Something totally different. Can we start with this? Because I think otherwise we may not get to it. It's on page 10 of the Sunday Times, Timmy. Jawar Robel is an amazing story, really, in this week where we're seeing some not great things on our phone. I presume you both at this stage have seen the video, the Asian lady who was pushed into the canal by some teenagers. You're just wondering, what the hell are we doing here? And we're having a week of reporters, it's dystopian almost, on boats next to refugees coming in on rafts and shouting over to them, "Are you okay?" just for, a live news feed. And you just wonder where we're going in some respects. So a story like this is a brilliant one. It's Rebecca Myers, Timmy. Robel's journey from refugee to referee.
Yeah, I thought it was a fascinating story, and I think, we have no idea, Joe, of the effects of racism. Thankfully, from an individual point of view, but it must be horrific for people who suffer racism. And this is a good story in the context. First of all, in a war-torn Somalia, she came out of, right? And then she came to England and she couldn't speak England. And now she's a referee. And I think she handles the fact that people look at her very differently. And when she walks, she talks about the grounds people and other people look at her very differently. But she handles it with a great touch of class. That's what came across to me in the story. The second thing that came across was that her parents did not want her to play football, which is fascinating. And that's why she ended up going coaching and ultimately refereeing in that sense. But JJ, as she's commonly known locally in the UK, comes across as somebody who really accepts herself for what she is. She accepts that there are challenges that have been given to her, herself, her family, in her upbringing, in her life to date, and that racism is alive and well. But she has the class, just reading the piece, and she has the passion for soccer to overcome that. And that's what I took out of the piece, Joe, that here's a classy young lady who has a lot of difficulties in her life, personally and with her family, to overcome, and yet has the class and dignity to overcome them and still want to pursue her dream, even though it was to play, but now was to be an official. So I was really impressed with the piece.
Yeah, it's quite a short piece, and it's on the bottom of page 10 of the Sunday Times. You could easily miss it for sure. And she says herself that when she turns up to a match, she's a qualified level 6 referee, so she officiates in county leagues over in England. And she turns up in her hijab and she says, the players are looking at me and I'm like, I'm your referee, don't worry, I've got this. She's only 26 years of age. She says, I know I'm different to what a normal referee looks like, but I'm there to surprise them, who cares? And she plans on being the first female Muslim referee in the Premier League or the Women's Super League. And Hector, a point which just made me think of those refugees coming in on the boats with BBC or Sky News or whoever it is with the live feed shouting over at them. The notion that they wanted to up sticks and give up their lives is just a fallacy, because she talks here about being 10 years of age. She's from Somalia, moved to the UK when she was 10. Civil war ravaged her home. She says, I would never in a million years have imagined we'd leave Somalia. We were so happy. We'd go to the beach, we'd take our packed lunches, we'd spend the whole day there. She loved playing sport. The main sport was football, basketball. Everyone played football. Lunchtime football, straight after school football. I was so happy. And she talks about the day they left, told to pack her bags immediately. We were like, oh my gosh, we didn't even get to say goodbye to anyone. Why can't we stay for another day so we can say goodbye to our friends? But they were like, this is about life or death. And she pitches up as a 10-year-old in England with no English. And, she thrived to a point. I'm sure it's been tough, but she's doing well now.
No, it is a great story. I was in Africa early on in this year in January and February and March. I was in Sudan and Ethiopia and Kenya. And we always think that before I travelled to Africa for the first time a couple of years ago, I thought, oh my God, what will happen? How will we be safe? A TV crew going to Africa to film in the middle of nowhere. And every conception that was in my mind, and attitude and opinion that was farmed from the media that was in my head, was completely destroyed when I got to Africa. It's an amazing continent with amazing people who are living as best they can. The happiness, their smiles, the handshake goes an awful long way, and sport in Africa goes an awful long way. In Sudan in February, I was with the first ever female soccer team there. It was an immoral act until last year when Bashir was overthrown, and I filmed with a group of ladies who started their league, and now they have a national team in Sudan, and I presented one of the captain with an Irish jersey, a number 6 Irish jersey. But just to see the simplicity of life. She says she arrived, she had the ball. The first day at school I had my own ball. I had zero English, and this is the language of football. I'm fresh from the boat talking to these kids with no English, yet I have a football in my hand. And I've seen it on my travels all over the world. Football is a language. It breaks down the barriers, whether you're in the middle of the African bush or on the streets of the favela in Rio de Janeiro, or whether you're on the beach in Bettystown, or you're in a back alley in Stillorgan or somewhere like that, kicking against the wall. It's a great story, and she's got a great smile, and hopefully we'll see her on the pitches going forward.
She doesn't talk about it here, but you suspect she's encountered racism, because it would just seem like it's very, very difficult to pitch up in a new country at that age and not experience it somehow. I suspect, Hector, you in particular, you've travelled the world, you've done so much travel, you've met so many people, you're watching some of the stuff over the past week, and to say you're disgusted, I'm sure, or scratching your head would be an understatement.
Unbelievable, and especially the incident, I think it was on the campus of NUIG, I might not be sure, but it was in Galway, where there was a girl racially abused, and it was very, very disgusting.
Yeah,
and
the N-word was used repeatedly.
The N-word was used repeatedly on a beautiful summer's day in Galway, and it's just, when you see those young lads and what they did to that girl at the canal the other day, it's just, unfortunately, we're capturing on mobiles. Yes, and luckily we've caught it on a mobile. This is an underbelly that's growing in this country, where people are getting away with this sort of stuff. It has to be stamped out immediately. I'm a parent of 2 teenage boys as well, so these are all things as parents that we look at going, what in the name of what is going on? So it was a disgusting week with those 2 incidences, and I hope it doesn't become more prolific in the future.
Timmy, also this week, and we'll play the interview out again later on, Cyrus Christie was on OTBAM with Ger Gilroy, and he was detailing being over a training session in Dublin, and a kid said something to him in front of a teacher as well, and not much was done about it. And as Hector said there, parent of 2 kids, you just hope parents are having this conversation a bit more, not assuming that somehow kids know the difference between right and wrong when it comes to this issue, because it's so obvious to most of us. You hope we're ramming it down the throats of the next generation, and probably ourselves, to be honest, as well, the older generations.
Well, first of all, we should make it very clear on programs like this, racism is wrong. There's no ifs or buts or maybes. Racism is wrong. And, kids don't, become racist. Kids learn racism from older people. So we've got to make it very clear in schools, we've got to make it very clear, in communities, that it's not acceptable. And the 2 tapes that Hector talked about, the one in Galway was horrific to watch. This girl is actually asking the guy, why is he calling her that? And he just keeps calling her. Yeah. And the one in the canal yesterday, are teenagers thinking they're having fun, and they're not. And, I also saw a post from the lady who was attacked, saying that she went to the guards, and the guard said, look, it's unlikely we can do anything. And that would be unfortunate, because even if you, met the kids and explain to them, that, this is wrong. And, when you talk about Christie, and it doesn't matter whether you're a sports star or whether you're, just a normal non-sports star. Everybody is equal. Gender equality, racial equality is all equal. We're all equal people. None of us are better than anybody else, and none of us are worse than anybody else. We're all trying to get through our life the best way we can. And we should be, those of us who are in the media from time to time or more regularly, should make it very clear all the time that racism is wrong for all people, not just for, a section of people. It is wrong for all people. And when we see something that is racist, we should be courageous enough and say, that is wrong. We should have the courage as individuals, with our children, with our grandchildren, to educate them and to say we're just all equal. And at the end of the day, our time will come, hopefully not for a long time for all of us, but our time will come. And it'd be nice to look back and someone say they were decent people who treated everybody equal.
Well, here's hoping we see JJ reffing in the Premier League. That'll be quite something. So she's qualified level 6 referee, officiates in county leagues, and she's got big ambitions, still only 26. That's on page 10 of the Sunday Times. Hector, not surprisingly, the Champions League quarter-finals are everywhere. I mean, they were just incredible, particularly last night and the game between Barcelona and Bayern Munich. Just extraordinary. A couple of really good pieces on the games. What caught your eye?
Yeah, look, I lived in the Basque Country for a couple of years. My team was Athletic Bilbao. I was lucky enough to learn Spanish, and I was there for the great team of. I saw the Koemans and the Stoichkov and the Romario and the Frank Rijkaard brigade. So Barcelona, as always, and Spanish soccer has always had a place in our house. But last night was the end of an era, or the other night when they were humiliated. The piece on the Sunday Indo. Jonathan Wilson, page 5. Yeah. He says Barcelona cannot say that they weren't warned. Since 2017, their exits from the Champions League have been becoming increasingly embarrassing. Humiliation has followed humiliation. Finally, perhaps now, after their 8-2 humbling defeat against Bayern, the worst defeat since 46, a performance that has been shapely in its ineptitude, actions will be taken. It is the end of an era. And the golden era is over for Messi, for Busquets, for Piqué, for this aging team, this creaking team, who they interspersed with new blood over the last couple of years, but it's gone. I mean, Ronaldo jumped ship from La Liga at 33 years of age, and is still at 35. He's going to bigger heights in Juventus. But he says Spain, until very recently, had been very obviously the leading league in Europe, writes Jonathan Wilson. Sevilla may yet have become the 10th Spanish winners of the Europa League in 17 years, but there will not be an 8th Spanish Champions League winner in 13 years. In the space of 8 days, all 3 of La Liga's remaining sides have exited in a way that raised questions about the game as a whole. I don't like the game in Spain. I've been at many matches in Spain. I was delighted to see Atletico Madrid exit the tournament. I'd rather watch Magnolia paint dry in a 1972 bungalow in the middle of the country on a hot summer's day. It's just terrible football. This Simeone bubble has to be burst. I mean, they're absolutely shite, Atletico Madrid. And they're gone. And thanks be to God, they're gone. How they ever put Liverpool out before the COVID, I'll never know. But again, it's great to see Barcelona got out. They were going to places like Alaves and Espanyol throughout the season, and scraping wins and drawn 2-2 with Betis. The writing has been on the wall about Barcelona for a long, long time. Maybe as a Man United fan, they still hurt me over the years in their brilliant dominance when Xavi and Iniesta were feeding Messi. But alas, Messi has no more people to feed him. And what will he do? That's the big question, lads. What will Messi do now?
Well, you suspect, given he's 33, don't you, that if he's going to stick around for the rebuilding phase, he's looking at not winning very much for the rest of his career. So is he going to do that?
I would say, Joe, that Messi will leave Barcelona. I think that a few years ago that was probably, something that would not happen, but I think it's likely. I mean, I think the piece in the Sunday Times by Ian Hawkeye is fascinating. Before I say that, because Hector obviously has been to Spain and to Africa and all over the world, but I've been to Cork, just to clarify that. I've been to Cork on many occasions. So, I had to get that in, Hector, because obviously your travels are much more expensive than mine. So a lot of my experience will be from my Corkonian friends. The piece about Ian Hawkeye is fascinating because there's one paragraph where Messi went to the club to ask them to buy back Neymar. Yeah. And when I read that piece, now I'd heard about it before, but when you actually read in the context of what happened last night or 2 nights ago, you realize like this is a structure falling apart. This is not just, as Hector said correctly, the end of an era for a team. This is a structure falling apart, because he also talks in the piece about, the excessive wages that they have and that they're aging stars on huge money. They brought Griezmann from Atletico Madrid and he has failed. I mean, he's a failure at Barcelona. So the problem they have is the structure's falling apart because they've spent huge money. They've spent nearly 800 million the last number of years. A lot of the players they bought have left. They bought players like Coutinho, who actually ironically scored against them the other night. He can't get into the Barcelona team. They sold Thiago to Bayern when he was 22, the piece talks about, to replace him with Vidal. Vidal is, as slow as a bad horse in the Betis-owned races. Okay, never mind, say, playing in the Champions League quarterfinal. So the structure has fallen apart. And I think it's fallen apart because, like many structures, they had a golden era where they were invincible in reality. I mean, they beat United on occasions, they beat my team Chelsea on occasions, in heartbreaking games, semi-finals, defeats over the years. And they lived in that for a long period of time. And they got caught up in the fact of two things. One, Joe, was the fact that Messi would live forever as the best footballer in the world, and he's just getting slightly older now. The second thing they got caught up in was the fact that they always wanted to be better than Real Madrid. And they forgot that other teams around Europe were catching up. And I think what's missing from both articles in the Sunday Times in particular and the Independent article, the three articles that we're discussing in relation to this match, is how wonderful Bayern have been. Because, the demise of Barcelona is very evident. But the surge of Bayern is just phenomenal. They play a brand of football now, that is just exceptional. And, things that they've done, they've put David Alba centre-back, so they've created pace in the centre-back position. They have some old players too. Thomas Muller is aging, Lewandowski is aging. But they play a beautiful brand of football with pace, with power, and with a clinical, efficiency that many German teams are renowned for. So I thought that Champions League game showed us two things, and the articles showed us about aging Barcelona stars on big bucks. Their time is up, and I would say that it hinted at that we have a Bayern Munich team that could be around for a fair bit of time. Yeah,
right on the next page, Jonathan Northcroft gives Bayern their due, and they've had 27 wins and 1 draw in their last 28. They have averaged 4.3 goals in every game this season, which he says is just ludicrous, and it is. And I agree with you. I thought the hEochagain piece really interesting. Aging stars on big wages leave Barca at rock bottom. Rock bottom is Piqué's phrase, and Messi came out earlier this year and said teams who come at us with intensity find it easy. And hEochagain says, who knew this was coming? Well, he says pretty much everyone. PSG knew. They beat Barca 4-0 in 2017. A year later, Roma beat Barca 3-0. 2019, Liverpool beat them 4-0. And this was coming for a long time. Josep Maria Bartomeu, the president, outgoing president, is getting a lot of the flack. It's been a systems failure on every front because La Masia has stopped producing talent, it seems, for whatever reason. It says here in the piece that the young players there are now just sold to cover the highest wage bill in football. Like Messi alone is getting $1 million a week. He's probably worth it if anyone can be in this mad world. But they've got the highest wage bill in football. And then, as you said, the transfers are a mess as well. 900 million spent since their last Champions League win in 2015. Griezmann, 120 million on the bench last night. Dembele, 100 million on the bench last night. Coutinho, 150 million scoring for Bayern Munich last night. So, Hector, when all of that's going on, you're not producing young players the way you were. You've spent 900 million and your team's not much better than 5 years ago. In the meantime, all your best players have got old and they're on huge wages. What manager's going to want to come in and sort that out? The papers are all saying Pochettino or Javi might come back, although in a couple of places it says Javi has kind of smelt or has enough connections in the dressing room to know that now may not be the best time.
Yeah, they've had a quick fix over the last couple of seasons, and especially they brought in the new guy. I can't even think of the new guy that came. He come from Sevilla. Setien in February. Yeah. He looked lost. He looked like he was just brought in to sort of patch it all up. They signed Frankie de Jong last season or the season before. Yeah. Last season I think it was. It's a huge problem for them. And as Tim was saying, they focus too much on Real Madrid, and it's Marca. I'd say Marca and AS, the two soccer newspapers, have gone to town on them over the last 2 days. The two daily soccer newspapers, sport newspapers in Spain. But who's going to be the new manager? Who's going to revitalise this whole Barcelona empire? It's not going to happen in one season. With no new players coming through. I've seen a couple breaking through in La Liga this year from La Masia, but it's the end of an empire like Manchester United a couple of seasons ago, who are probably putting in the raft of a foundation now, and we started rebuilding onto the first and second floor. But Barcelona and the empire has crumbled.
It would seem that way. We're going to take a short break. News headlines, then we're back with Hector and Timmy.
The Sunday Papers on Off the Ball. Sign up for News Talk Extra.
our email newsletter straight to your inbox. newstalk.com/extra.
At Leia Healthcare, we always want to give our members more. So now you get unrestricted access to a world of benefits that will help you stay healthy. From convenient video calls with a GP to get prescriptions online, to easy access to experts when you finally want to do something about your ropey knee or dodgy back. And if you do need to see someone urgently, our clinics are available for minor injuries, all without you needing to put your hand in your pocket. Let's stay on top of your health, in every way. Leia Healthcare, looking after you always. Insurance provided by Ellipse Insurance Limited, trading as Leia Healthcare. Leia Healthcare Limited, trading as Leia Healthcare, and Leia Life is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Unrestricted benefits are available until the end of August. Fair usage policy applies.
At Guaranteed Irish, we believe enterprise is at the heart of thriving communities.
Which is why we support Original Irish Hotels, Ireland's largest collection of independent hotels, castles and manor house hotels. These hotels offer a truly local experience, employing local people and supporting local food producers. We call on you to support Original Irish Hotels when you travel again. Guaranteed Irish welcomes companies that are altogether better choices for our communities. So look out for it. GuaranteedIrish.ie. Altogether better.
Get your broadband moving all around your home, so you can start flexing in the living room. And that sourdough can start rising in the kitchen. For streaming from the front door to the attic, connect with our best ever Wi-Fi all around your home. Sky Broadband. Your world is limitless. For more information, see sky.ie/speeds.
Look, it wasn't supposed to end like this. I was going to use you in a cauliflower curry. I had good intentions. I should have bought frozen instead.
Food waste can cost the average Irish family €700 a year, not to mention a lot of guilt. So waste less and buy frozen. Green Isle. Get to the goodness.
See how good TV can be with the world's best-selling OLED brand. The LG CX series gives you the ultimate picture quality so you can enjoy films and sport like you've never seen them before. For more information, go online to powercity.ie.
Whether we're working, playing or just staying in touch, never before have we been so plugged in and switched on. Not only are our energy prices dropping, we've got a great dual fuel offer too. Switch to SSE Airtricity today and get 28% off 100% green electricity and 23% off gas. Free phone 1800 818 466 or visit ssseairtricity.com for our best discounts. This is a great deal. This is Generation Green. EAB €1,509. Offer from 29th of May 2020. Rates valid from 1st of May 2020, subject to change. 1 year standard unit rate discount for new home electricity and gas customers on direct debit and e-bill. For details of T's and C's, EAB, rates, exit fees, green energy claims, standing charges, see ssseairtricity.com.
Afternoons are easy with InsureMyVan.ie, Ireland's low-cost van insurance specialist. Get your business back on the road with InsureMyVan's best price guarantee. For super savings, visit InsureMyVan.ie. City Financial Marketing Group Limited, trading as InsureMyVan.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Hate missing out? News Talk Extra is news, entertainment and all the latest podcasts, plus expert tips and competitions straight to your inbox. Subscribe now at newstalk.com/extra. Screen Time with John Fardy.
On this week's Screen Time podcast, I talked to the director of Spree, the new social media slasher movie. Mark Ryle gets stuck into the new version of Pinocchio and Netflix's Project Power. Plus, Catherine Fulvio on her favourite movie.
Screen Time with John Fardy.
Brought to you by Stella Cinemas.
Listen and subscribe to the podcast now on newstalk.com or on the Newstalk app.
On 106 to 108 FM, on newstalk.com, on smart speaker and on the Newstalk app. This is Newstalk.
It's 2 o'clock. Good afternoon. Ireland's 14-day average of COVID-19 cases per 100,000 people has increased to 22.1. The figure from the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control was at 15.8 a week ago. The UK is currently at 18.6. It comes as a Monaghan GP warns the country will be snookered if COVID-19 cases continue to increase into the winter flu season. Dr. Ilona Duffy says boosting our testing programme's the best chance we have of tackling outbreaks.
In Germany. I just talked to a friend this morning. They're offering voluntary testing in schools and in preschools every fortnight to all staff and all students. So these are the things I think we have to look at. We have to test.
The Minister for Health, Stephen Donnelly's described a brunch event at a Dublin bar over the weekend as reckless. Footage from Berlin D2 and Dame Lane yesterday showed people dancing close together while a barman poured drink from a bottle into their mouths. CEO of the Licensed Vintners Association, Donal O'Keefe, says he's absolutely fuming over the behaviour.
It's enormously damaging for the reputation of the pub trade, even though the business in question is not a pub. We believe that the vast majority of people want to see pubs reopen, but videos like this are enormously damaging for us.
The Taoiseach should not have sacked Barry Cowan as Agriculture Minister last month, according to a senior member of his own party. In an interview with the Sunday Times, Jim O'Callaghan's described the decision to remove Mr Cowan as a tough call, but says he would have given him more time. Micheál Martin sacked the Offaly TD from his cabinet after he refused to answer Dáil questions on his drink driving ban. Our political correspondent Sean Defoe says Jim O'Callaghan's also hinted he'll run in any future Fianna Fáil leadership race.
He is asked about it by Justine McCarthy a number of times, and the language is always interesting in this, trying to say yes I'd like to be Fianna Fáil leader in Taoiseach without saying yes I'd like to be Fianna Fáil leader and Taoiseach, but very much saying look, there isn't a vacancy at the moment, but when there is I'll be there.
And Met Éireann's issued a status yellow rainfall warning for 14 counties in the southern half of the country. Thundery downpours are also possible, along with localised spot flooding. The warning comes into effect from 2 a.m. tomorrow morning and will stay in place until midnight. It's 2 minutes past 2.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to the AA. For great value home insurance, go online to theaa.ie.
Cloudy with scattered showers in southern and eastern areas, spreading to all parts later in the day. Highest temperatures of 17 to 23 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Sunday Papers
on Off the Ball.
Now you're very welcome back. We're looking through the Sunday Papers. We have Hector O with us. We have Timmy McCarthy, basketball commentator, former Irish basketball captain as well. If you want to watch us, we're streaming on all our social channels, or you'll get us in the app as well, OTB Sports in your app store. If you want to watch the chat, we're talking to the two lads via Skype. Hector, I'm disappointed you're not in the man shed. I thought you'd have the pool table out. I thought we'd have your feet up there. You're in the office. You're all business today.
Yeah. I just put up a shelf this morning and I positioned all my sports autobiographies. I deliberately put up that just for Off the Ball this morning.
Oh, well, listen. What's your go-to sports autobiography? What's the one you like the most, if there's a favourite?
Trevor Brennan's Heart and Soul is probably one of the best ones I've ever read. I told him to call it My Left Hook, but he wouldn't. Andre Agassi's book is a magnificent book. And I was just told on the sideline of a soccer match against Corrib Celtic, Craig Moore, Clare Galway under-14 challenge match yesterday morning. I was talking to another parent on a sideline, and he said he's a cyclist. And he said, I told him I'd met Pantani, and I lived and Miguel Indurain in the Basque Country. And then he said, you have to read Pantani's autobiography. He said, it's brilliant. It's tearful, and the way he died was absolutely tragic. So that's another one's on my list, the great cyclist Pantani.
Okay. Timmy, do you want to throw one in then? Be rude not to ask you.
Well, obviously Roy Keane will be on my list. There'll be no parochialism. But a book I really like, actually, it's not an autobiography, but it's Legacy on both the All Blacks, because it really talks about what separates them as a team, as a unit, and as a group of individuals. So that's definitely a book that people should read in business and in sport. Legacy about the All Blacks, about their leadership, about their culture, and about what goes on behind the scenes. So that's definitely, for me, probably one of my favourite all-time sports books.
Okay, let's get back to the papers then. So before we leave the football, I know Manchester United are playing this evening. Hector, you're going to be all over this game tonight. Graham Souness is writing about United's front three. Before we touch on them, if we're talking Manchester, all the back pages had photos of Raheem Sterling's face, just in horror, I would say, more than anything, as it's dawning on him what's just happened. And he doesn't even realise then that in about 60 seconds, Leon are going to score. So, I mean, I'd say you would have laced up the size 9s and managed to scuffle that one into the net, no?
I think anyone would have got the left peg to that, or just guided it into the net. Look at Manchester City seemed a little bit off last night. I was just fascinated by the width of Memphis Depay's legs, as he was, I've never seen, the last time I saw legs like that was John Barnes. They're fully tattooed. They're Larry Tompkins. I better bring in something about Cork here, although he is a Kildare footballer that signed a free transfer. They're Larry Tompkins-like legs. They're huge butts of legs. Like, I was fascinated by Memphis. He touched the ball 3 times, and yet they managed to win the game. I just thought Man City were off the pace last night. No creativity. The back 5 of Lyon stifled the game completely. They were up for it, and they attacked, and they ravaged, and they stuffed. They snuffed out De Bruyne, but Man City had no answer to them. And I'm delighted that Leipzig have gone through. I'm delighted that Lyon have beaten Manchester City. And maybe some people say the proper decision about the European football and the way they got through to the final stages after the court proceedings, maybe justice was served in the end. But I tweeted on Twitter last night, Memphis loves Manchester, just to stoke it up a little bit.
So you have Sevilla this evening then, and there's lots of coverage naturally. Sevilla are a good team. Reguilón at left back's a really good player. Benega's a really good player. They bossed it against Roma. They should and could have, and another night have beaten Wolves by more. And obviously they've knocked United out of the Champions League not so long ago. Graham Souness, page 4 and 5. He's looking at United's front 3. Martial, 24 years old. Rashford is 22 years old, and Greenwood is 18. And Hector, he reckons Greenwood is going to be the best of the bunch, and clearly so, I think, in Souness's view. His age, athleticism, technique, and that sixth sense that the very best have. He takes a ball early, strikes it beautifully. If you look at a lot of Messi's goals, he says, you see play developing and the goalkeeper getting set, and then the next thing the ball's in the back of the net, and he's not moved because Messi takes it so early. So that's a hell of a comparison to make. So he likes the look of that front 3 for sure on the whole. He's not down on Rashford or Martial either, to be fair.
No, he had a little dig at Martial.
His attitude.
I think Martial, but Martial has turned inside out. I think he's enjoying his football now. He's close control as he goes towards players. But he, like typical Souness, he has a little dig. The one that most concerned me, he says, is Martial, the most talented technically of the 3 of them. The challenge going forward for Ole is to keep the fire lit under his number 9, because he's a real player in there. He has ability, his pace, everything you would want. He's been at United for 5 years now, and during that stay he has looked moody and disinterested. I think he's turned inside out in the last couple of months. He's enjoying his football, especially with Greenwood. But the main supplier, the Portuguese, Bruno, is supplying them with much better ball, and he's turned Manchester United forward play inside out. He's given the whole team a lift. So these 3 guys are thriving because of Bruno Fernandes, and hopefully tonight, it's a lovely way he says it, Souness, on page 4 in the Times. A couple of good nights from these young men with young legs will provide Solskjaer with some silverware to show for his first full season at the United helm. And they are young strikers, 3 guys at the top of their game, and Greenwood is an exceptional talent, left and right foot.
And I presume you would admit that post-Ferguson, be it Moyes or even Van Gaal and definitely Mourinho, United have been just plain boring to watch for a long time. It's the first time they've not been rubbish to watch.
It was awful. I was over there for Van Gaal matches under Van Gaal with the lads, and over there under Moyes, and it was desperate. And even Mourinho, was desperate stuff. But Nemanja Matic was just laterally passing. He was a side passer. I mean, Scott McTominay did well at the start of the season, but he's not that top quality midfielder. It was a very shrewd buy, probably the best buy in Europe this season. Bruno Fernandes to Man United in January. He's already paid them back in bucket loads. He's like a whippet. He looks like he's only about 9 or 10 stone, but he looks like he's jaded, and then he does something brilliant. But one player has transformed Man United this season, and he's rejuvenated the whole style of play. And I'm delighted for Solskjaer that he's given them a chance. Tonight we have to prove it against the kingpins of the Europa League, Sevilla. They're going to be no pushover, and they know how to win.
Timmy, something totally different. Page 2 and 3. Paul Kimmage talking to Sonia O'Sullivan after the gold rush and the madness of it all. He's catching up with Sonia now around the age of 50. Is Sonia O'Sullivan Cork's greatest sporting product, Timmy?
I would say Sonia O'Sullivan is Ireland's greatest sporting product in many ways.
Ireland's.
Yeah, I would think that. I think what she did at the time she did it, I mean, we've had people like Brian O'Driscoll, and we've had people like Paul O'Connell, and we've had, obviously we had George Best in a soccer sense, and we had Johnny Giles and Brady. I just thought what she did at a time when we really, as a nation, other than the Euros and the World Cup in soccer, we didn't have a lot of sort of success. I thought she was phenomenal. I mean, I just thought she was incredible, and I thought the piece was, to me, an interesting piece to read, Joe, because it it was very dull at times, you know. She didn't give an awful lot away at times, right? But then she gave a couple of nuggets, you know. So it was kind of, you know, a Q&A between two people, and, you know, Paul Kimmage talking about his sort of interest in her at one point and giggling about that. But I just thought it was a bit nonchalant for a long time. But she gave a couple of nuggets. The nugget for me was Atlanta. And she said, before Atlanta and after Atlanta, there were two different athletes. And I just thought that was an amazing statement. She says, you know, after Atlanta, I was pretty good, but I was never again dominant. And I just think that really was an interesting, you know, sort of classic moment for me, because many of us remember that night in Atlanta where, you know, where she came off the track heartbroken. And as Irish people, obviously as Cork people, but as Irish people, we were heartbroken for her, and, you know, just seeing her demise with all the expectations that we as a nation had on her at that point in time, in that sense. She sat on the fence, though, which surprised me for Sonia, and she talked about her new book, but she sat on the fence about the drugs, because, look, to us here in Ireland, we believe she was cheated by the Chinese, we believe she was cheated by the Romanians and by the Eastern Europeans, and, you know, but she said words like, you know, if I was cheated, and she repeated that 3 times, if I was cheated. She never, because she talked all the time about there was no proof back then. So that disappointed me in the piece, because I thought that, you know, Kimmage made a reference at one stage about the comparison with cycling and athletics, that, you know, there's as many drugs, you know, taken in athletics as there in cycling, yet cycling has a very bad name. Sadly, you know, both sports have bad names if you look at it reality. And that's, you know, it's unfortunately many people have won in both those sports by cheating the system, and, you know, at all levels in it. So it was, Joe, to me it's a nice read. It doesn't give an awful lot away. You know, it doesn't tell you what she wants to do. She qualifies as an accountant, but she's never done that. She's back home in Coven. But it does, you know, it tells you her modesty, and obviously Hector will notice that Cork people are always very modest and very humble. So that comes out when she talks about, you know, the statue of her in Cove in that sense. So I just thought it was a nice piece, Joe, but it didn't. When I saw the front page, I was really excited. I kind of left a bit flat, and the only last thing I'd say, which I thought was another big revelation, was the Ukrainian athletes talking to Sonia's buddy, who said, we think that she cheats. We believe everyone cheats, and that's why we take drugs. I just thought that was a very interesting insight from somebody as well. So to me, it was an okay read. That's probably the best I could say.
You know, Atlanta, so to go on your first point for a moment, where before she felt invincible and afterwards she got to very good, I had never heard her talk about Kim McDonald in any great way before, who Paul Kimmage describes as her ABC, her agent, boyfriend, coach. And that was, I thought, you know, very striking and interesting, and close to the reality of what happened around Atlanta, because it's hard to make sense of it in other ways. And that relationship seemed to go from 91 through to just after at Atlanta. What was your interpretation of that whole conversation around McDonald?
Yeah, that was an interesting point, because she wrote him a letter, it looks like, to break up. I mean, you know, which I thought was very interesting. I thought that to me was very interesting. So they never came out and said they were boyfriend and girlfriend, but they were kind of friends and in a relationship. So it struck me, like, my recollection of Sonia, so I would have met Sonia at sporting occasions back in Cork back in those days, and she was always a very shy girl. I mean, you know, we look at Sonia now of today, you know, in the TV personality she's becoming now, but back then she was very shy, she was very quiet, so you could easily be influenced. So obviously, you know, like, she was influenced in different ways, and, you know, she didn't end up having a boyfriend relationship. But she said at one stage in the article, you know, I'm not sure you can have a relationship if you're preparing for the Olympics, which again would have been sort of an interesting take in it. I got the impression she was infatuated by this guy's sporting and agency abilities and fell into some type of relationship. She didn't blame him, though, to be fair, even though she was challenged. She did not blame him about Atlanta. She took it on the chin. But I just thought, like, to me, psychologically, I remember watching on the night, Joe, obviously, right, and, you know, as a proud Irish person, really wanting all of our athletes to do well, but she was the top athlete at that point in time. And it was demoralising for the nation, I mean, at the time, who were watching that Olympics. But more importantly, when you read this piece, she realised for her it was the end of her dominance internally, because she was still the same athlete. She just had a bad night for whatever reason we don't know, but she had a bad night. But I just thought that. So I thought she talked about the relationship and Kimmage's version of ABC as it was an important part of her life. But the fact that she had to write a letter told me more about Sonia at that point in time in her life, after the upset and disappointment of Atlanta, than it did about their relationship in that sense. And I just think that she's been a classy lady. I would say Sonia's been a classy lady who, in many ways, could have got more out of the sport. Certain circumstances went against her, but in many ways got an awful lot out of the sport. So, you know, she looked back on her career. If I was giving her a guidance to say, you know, just with great pride, you know, things happen, but life goes on, you know.
Yeah. Like, I thought that whole section was absolutely fascinating. I was gripped reading it, and where is this going? And I hadn't really heard her talk about that ever before. I thought that was very revealing and significant. And then, you know, maybe the thrust of the piece, like you sort of say, well, she's asked what's she doing now and she's not sure, and maybe that's kind of a disappointing aspect of the article. For me, I mean, that's kind of, again, the part that will stay with me for a long time, that this is an athlete who's touched the heights, and it's fascinating to see where she is now, and she's pretty honest about it, because Paul Kimmage says to her at one point, here's another quote from your book. This was her book in 2008. I'm 38 writing this, I'll be 39 soon. I have to find something to do with the rest of my life. And Paul says, you're 50 now, have you found it? And she's incredibly honest here. This is right towards the end of the piece.
Yes.
She says, not really, no. I haven't found anything that I'm as passionate about as I was about running. Is that hard? She says, I'm quite passionate about cooking. I'll go into the kitchen and I'll make bread and soup, but it's not ... She pauses, her eyes mist with tears, writes Paul. You feel like you have to do something. You feel like you have to have a purpose in what you do. People say, why are you here? And it makes you think, well, why am I here? And the reason I'm here, and I said this to Nick and to Sophie when I was coming over, is that I'll have more purpose over here than I will in Australia right now. I should add, she's over in Cork at the moment. She's in Cove at the moment, in the midst of lockdown. And things I need to do, but I can't explain what that is. I'm actually trying to work it out. Is this what I want to do? Do I want to be here? And if I am here, what am I going to do? Because there's an expectation, or, you know, people just want to know what you're doing. Paul says to her later on, you were graduated as an accountant. Yeah, be an accountant. She laughs. No, why not? I'd have no interest in that. And Paul makes the point. So it's a sense of purpose, something to get you outside the door. She says, it's something I can be passionate about. And that's where she is in her life. And I think that was incredibly, you know, open of her at 50 years of age to kind of admit that. I mean, how do you find something, Hector, when you've run at Olympic Games and won the medals she has and touched the heights she has and excelled to the extent she has, and have to work so hard to do it, you know, to have the passion to do it? I'm not sure, like, it's unrealistic to find anything at 50 that will come close to what you were, probably for lots of us in lots of different ways, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, you're right on that paragraph as well. It's a long piece for Paul Kimmage, but he breaks it down nicely for the reader sitting at home today into those 3 or 4 titles, the ABC, which is the age and point and quote, but then that last piece as well. 50 years of age, but like the adrenaline, the buzz, the adulation. Anytime I've met Sonia Sullivan, and as Tim said, she's a classy lady. She's a brilliant Irish woman. She's everything, epitomizes everything great about our country, and she's an incredible sports person who, if she's back in Cove, I think her daughter's running now pretty successfully, isn't she?
Yeah, Sophie, yeah.
But again, that's a nice piece there, and you know, that's Kimmage just peeling back a little bit under the skin to see where she is at the moment, and where is anyone when they hit that, you know, 50 years of age, or somebody who's the height of her sport, the best in the world, and then, you know, but that happens to everybody, no matter what chosen sport or profession you've taken, or your career or your path in life. But I hope the book goes well for her, and she's definitely, her name. And anytime I've met her, she's just a brilliant Irish sports person, and amazing to what she did. And I love that bit about the Russians and about the Ukrainians. Tim touched on it as well, you know. And there was always a conflict message there. Russian athletes in their hotels, they would come up to me and greet me and be happy to see you, and you wouldn't ignore them, but you didn't want to get too close. Why? Because I didn't trust them. And Russia and doping will never go away. And she was in the middle of that, trying to compete against the doped up athletes who were in front of her, and at the starting line of most races. It's a good piece, but as you say, that last piece is very telling, especially when the tears well up in her eyes. And what's the future hold? Hopefully it will be. She'll get into the media and she'll be happy back in Cove. Maybe she's making the break from Australia. She's been a long, long time from home and a long way from home for a long time.
That's the thing. COVID has come at an interesting point in her life. You get the sense there's an air of reflection about the whole chat. She's at this age now where you're taking stock, and she's been at home away from family in Australia as well, taking stock. And I think the piece really captures that. So it's well worth a look on page 2 and
there was
3.
Just on that, Joe, there was a simple Davy Russell hurling for cancer had a bit of publicity this week on social media channels, and it's a fantastic initiative. But Sonia was one of the chosen nominees to pick up a hurl and a schlitter.
Yeah.
And as you say, she's back home now. She was on she did it standing in a lovely little river, I'd say not far from her home, on a summer's evening the other day with a hurley and a schlitter. She was standing in a foot of water. The river looked beautiful. It was a beautiful scene. And she was doing as many keepy-uppies on the hurl and schlitter. And the sun was beating down. You could almost smell the Irish summer behind. And there was Sonia beside the bridge doing it. So I'm sure she's happy being at home.
Joe, just before you go on, Hector, that's Cork.
Yeah.
You should travel there a bit more. You'll get to see those lovely scenes in Cork a bit more, you know?
Can I just say to you, Tim, that have you ever been in Dungurney on a summer's night watching pint-to-pinters? Have you ever gone to Mount Unic and stood with the boys contracting and drank cider at 1 o'clock in the morning in Mount Unic? Have you ever gone to a pint-to-pint in Killa and seen one of your horses win? So don't talk to me about Cork. I have Cork coming out every part of me body.
Brilliant.
Let's get to the Royals.
Hang on a moment. We'll get to the Royals in one moment. Honestly, we'll
Come
get to
on.
them. Yeah, here we go. So, Eric Donovan fought really brilliantly and lost, unfortunately, on Friday night. The next fight in Eddie Hearn's back garden, Katie Taylor this weekend. Sean McGoldrick points out in the Sindo, Katie Taylor will gross more than $1 million next weekend when she puts her 4 lightweight belts on the line against her most dangerous foe, Delphine Persoon. Eddie Hearn's back garden, Essex. No gate receipts, and it will still be the richest ever fight in the checkered history of women's professional boxing. So that is where we are for this fight. And then Mick Foley looks back at the first fight between Katie Taylor and Delphine Persoon, and it just sets it up brilliantly for this weekend. You know, he even talks about the final round between Taylor and Persoon last summer in Madison Square Garden. And at the start of the final round, the fighters were gathered in the middle of the ring for 10 seconds before, almost as a final word before the fighting starts. The referee was making a point. And then he points out Taylor was hanging on when the final bell sounded, exhausted and punched out. And that 10 seconds is the implication, could have been vital. Whatever the result, those last 10 seconds changed the fight and lessened what almost became an extraordinary night for women's boxing. So Mick Foley writes, practically every fighter and boxing greybeard at ringside had Persoon as the winner. Carl Frampton only gave Taylor 2 rounds. David Hay, Matthew Macklin, Paulie Malignaggi all had Pearson ahead. But Taylor was given the decision, unifying the lightweight division like she promised. Persoon's people were writing letters to the WBC in a temper, and the wider boxing world crying foul at poor timekeeping and the politics at play in this 21st century version of Tammany Hall. So the point is clear. There was a sense that Delphine Persoon won that fight and that Katie Taylor got the decision, and she is the most important fighter in professional boxing. She's going to make $1 million from this fight coming up. And now Persoon, who has spent the last 11 years as a boxer and working as a policewoman, is going again for shot 2. So for Persoon, it is a shot at redemption and to right a wrong. And then Hector, for Taylor, it's a chance to put the first fight behind her where everyone is saying that Persoon won that fight. So we're going to have a hell of a go on this weekend. And it's pay-per-view as well. I mean, that's another kind of landmark in women's boxing. So that sets, those pieces set up this fight beautifully for the weekend.
Yeah, the Belgian police inspector Persoon, Katie took a fair hammering that day, but that's Katie Taylor's style. I mean, he says there, at times Taylor glided around the ring and made Persoon look clumsy. Other times she traded shots and took a clattering. That's her style. That's why Katie Taylor's box office. And to think that Katie can if she wins, will gross more than $1 million here. When you think, as Sean McGoldrick writes, Ireland's first female professional fighter, Deirdre Gogarty, was crowned IBF World Featherweight Champion in New Orleans in 1997. but never received her purse of $12,500. It's the meteoric rise of women's boxing, of female boxing, but it has taken a superstar like Katie Taylor to take it to the next level. It's going to be a great fight, and she'll make good dough out of it. And Eddie Hearn's Matchroom will make a lot more dough out of it. He's a very smart operator, Eddie Hearn, putting that on and having the fights in his front garden, which is about 16 acres of chateau-like. I was watching it last night, but fingers crossed, Katie, this is going to be a ding-dong battle.
Yeah.
Pursuing is no pushover.
No, for sure. And Timmy, the way it's sort of laid out is that if Katie can fight with a bit of discipline, then she'll win this fight. And she even says herself in Sean McGoldrick's piece, Floyd Mayweather was actually a genius in the ring. Boxing is a test of skill. A contest between a boxer and a fighter is always a good fight to witness. I definitely need to be more disciplined in this fight. The general implication is if she goes to war with Pursoon, she could get herself in a bit of trouble here, Timmy. But if she fights, you know, with all that amateur skill and pedigree that she has built up, she'll be far more able to pick off Pursoon. Will she have the discipline in the heat of the moment not to get into some kind of war?
Under pressure, Joe, we all do what comes natural. And Katie Taylor, in her amateur career, was always the dominant boxer, was always the person, you know, giving out more punches, you know, landing more punches. So she was always the person on the front foot. Now she's in a professional career, and particularly in the last fight, she had to be more disciplined on occasions. But her natural tendency under pressure is always to go forward. So, you know, if you take Foley's point, as Hector said, she glided around the ring on occasions and was controlling the fight. And then she got into toe-to-toes and she struggled. The point in Foley's one in the Sunday Times, the 10 seconds, I wasn't aware of that, Joe. I thought that the clock had started when the referee stopped. So that 10 seconds, now he positions it the fact that she ran out of energy and that, you know, it could have been fatal. I never worry about experts' views and who won the fight or not. I mean, there's people there to give the fight. Sometimes we get the break, sometimes we don't. Obviously, I'm biased because she's Irish, so we want her to win. I think what I don't agree with Foley, though, I don't think this fight next week will define her career or she has a point to prove. I think she wants to win the fight to retain her 4 belts. But I do agree with what you said. She has to be much more disciplined. If this becomes a street fight, then she gives the Belgium a great opportunity. If this becomes a boxing match, Taylor's a better boxer. She's technically a better boxer, she's quicker, and she's brave enough to take punches. But she's got to make sure she uses her strengths. And discipline, when you lose your discipline, what in my experience in any sport, watching sport and playing sport and coaching sport, when you lose your discipline, you lose your strength. You give away what you're good at, so the opponents then can maximize their opposition against you. So what she's got to do in this fight, and it's a really great fight to look forward to.
Yeah.
And the fact that she's Irish, the fact that she's world champion, and, you know, best of luck for earning $1 million and all that. But I think the brilliant thing for me would be if she can just maintain, and remember, she's the classiest boxer out in the ring. She's the person who's got it all, and make sure she just maintains that discipline, she'll win the fight.
Okay.
But when she got in trouble in the last one, she just lost her way, you know, and at the end she looked beaten up, you know, but she won it. That's what the records will show, and let's hope she does it again this time around.
Okay. Now, there are certain truths in life. One of them is that MeGA is dirty as sin, and Hector's going to try and tell us it's not in just a moment. We'll take a short break and then listen to this spoofery coming up.
The Sunday Papers on Off the Ball.
The Pat Kenny Show.
On tomorrow's programme, Luke O'Neill has all the latest COVID-19 news and developments, how a new galaxy discovery could deepen our understanding of the universe, and if you're having trouble sleeping, our expert will answer all your questions.
The Pat Kenny Show.
With Jaguar.
Tomorrow morning from 9 with me, Jonathan Healy.
On News Talk.
At Leia Healthcare, we always want to give our members more. So now you get unrestricted access to a world of benefits that will help you stay healthy. From convenient video calls with a GP to get prescriptions online, to easy access to experts when you finally want to do something about your ropey knee or dodgy back. And if you do need to see someone urgently, our clinics are available for minor injuries, all without you needing to put your hand in your pocket. Let's stay on top of your health, in every way. Leia Healthcare, looking after you always. Insurance provided by Ellipse Insurance Limited trading as Leia Healthcare. Leia Healthcare Limited trading as Leia Healthcare and Leia Life is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Unrestricted benefits are available until the end of August. Fair usage policy applies.
Coming soon, a love story on the open road. Kate's driving her friends to Dublin for the weekend, but her crush Johnny only has eyes for Emma.
Hey Johnny, why don't you sit up front with me and remind me to pay my M50 toll?
No need, Kate. I've got the M50 Quick Pay app.
Thanks, Emma. You're such a good friend.
Forget Me Not, out now. The M50 Quick Pay app lets you prepay your M50 toll and sends you reminders to pay after your journey. Download the M50 Quick Pay app today. Tolling is a vital source of funding for the operation and maintenance of our national roads network.
With the OnPost Money app, you can open a current account from the comfort of your couch, as well as earn money back into your account when you shop with any of our partners. So far, our customers have earned over €1 million, because when it comes to your money, you deserve more than a bank. Download the OnPost Money app or visit your local post office today. OnPost Money current account. Money back is based on spend with selected money back partners. A monthly maintenance fee applies. See onpost.com. Terms and conditions apply. OnPost is authorised by the Minister for Finance to provide payment services and is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland in the provision of such services.
Picture yourself relaxing in one of Ireland's finest hotels, overlooking breathtaking scenery in the heart of Connemara. Imagine yourself at Ballynahinch Castle, enjoying miles of wonderful trails, brisk walks on local beaches and cycling the Connemara Greenway. Cozy up with dinner in the pub or enjoy a book or board game in front of an open log fire. Surround yourself with space this autumn and book now at ballynahinchcastle.com.
Get closer to your cooking with Neff. For a limited time, claim a free set of induction pots worth €149 when you buy a selected Neff induction hob. For more information, go to paracity.ie to click and collect today.
Radio, what's it all about? If you're unemployed, a recent graduate, or just looking to get into radio, Learning Waves could have the answer for you. Learning Waves, along with Skillnet Ireland, are launching another 360 broadcasting bootcamp course. This is a real radio course where you'll learn everything you ever wanted to know about radio from people actually working in the industry. It's a part-time course delivered online, 1 evening per week for 10 weeks. During the course, you'll be provided with a mentor that will help you complete your course project. So if you want to work in radio, now is your chance to learn how. Apply online now at learningwaves.ie. Closing date is August 29th, with the course starting September 16th. This 360 broadcasting course is free and funded by Learning Waves Skillnet through Skillnet Ireland.
The Sunday Papers on Off the Ball.
Now you're welcome back. We have Hector O and Timmy McCarthy looking at the Sunday Papers. There's a response on page 7 of the Sunday Independent by Jerry McEntee to Tommy Conlon's piece from the week before. I think it's only appropriate to reply to Tommy Conlon's poisonous article in last week's Sunday Independent, he starts off. And to bring you up to date, if you're totally coming blind to this, there was the Sean Boylan documentary last week, and Tommy Conlon made the point that he felt a failing of the documentary was that it didn't get under the bonnet maybe of why Meath teams played the way they did, and he talked about the dirtiness of Meath teams, and it was a criticism of the documentary. He felt that it didn't really explain that or talk to Boylan enough about that. So Jerry McEntee has written a riposte here, Hector. Do you want to sum up the gist of what he's saying?
Yeah, former Meath captain Jerry McEntee insists Tommy Conlon's memory of Gaelic football over the last 40 years is tainted, he says. Conlon will no doubt be disappointed and a long time waiting for a glimpse of the darkness behind this sunny facade. But there is no darkness, he says. Sean Boylan only sees the good in everybody, Meath people or otherwise. And then he goes on in the piece to say, of the other stuff. But let's take a look at Conlon's recollection of Gaelic football over the last 40 years and ask if his tainted memory is the same as ours. There was a truly fantastic team, Kerry, of the 75-86 era. In Kerry's renowned cornerback, where was the charisma in Kerry's renowned cornerback dragging Jimmy Barry Murphy through at least one Munster final, dragging him out through one Munster final? Where was the class in Kerry's renowned halfback assault and battery of Dinny Allen? There you go, in the 1975 Munster final. I mean, Mr. Conlon, he says, also has a selective memory if he thinks that Meath teams of the 80s and 90s were the last incarnation of that long and ignoble era. Has he forgotten the careful orchestrated cynicism of 4, or was it the last 5 Dublin forwards in the final minutes of the 2017 All-Ireland final? And I can't get that image out of my hand when it was like watching the WWE when they dragged the Mayo players to the ground to prevent them receiving a kick out. Like, let's get this straight. Yes, the Boylan documentary unearthed a little bit of either love or hatred or passion or whatever, but you cannot take away from the quality of the documentary about one of the greatest GA men of all time and coaches and managers of all time. Yes, it ignited the fuel and fire of the great, were Meath a dirty team and were they a skillful team? And I'm glad that Jerry McEntee has had a retort and has written back and had a go back at Tommy Conlon. I mean, if you look at the spine of that team, Mick Lyons, Liam Harnan at centre-back, Jerry McEntee, Liam Hayes, Joe Castles, Colin O'Rourke, Brian Stafford. Yes, they're big men. Yes, they've got shoulders as wide as the hill of Tara. But that doesn't make them dirty players. This was the way Meath played football. Beautiful style of football. It was who they were. They backed up everybody, and it was a very successful formula that Boylan brought to the whole thing. And to insinuate that Boylan told him to go out and to take players out of it, that is not Sean Boylan in a million years. Meath played a tough brand of football that an awful lot of teams couldn't live with.
Why do they have the reputation then of a dirty team?
Because back then you were allowed to spill blood, and especially when you saw it on a Tigral jersey, Kildare, and blood on a white jersey looks bad. We watched the UFC and it's complete savagery. Meath backed each other up. If one lad went in, they all went in. And I'm training under 16s at the moment, and the hits are getting bigger in GA football. And as you go into minor, you want one lad to back it up. You need an enforcer on the team. And if there's a bit of fisticuffs against two parishes coming together, you need people to back each other up. This is football. This is GA. It's a contact sport. Meath backed each other up, and they were all big men, and they were all farming men, and they were all country lads from small clubs around the country. And that was it. I just don't know why people have this in their head. Trevor Giles isn't a dirty player. I mean, some of the fantastic couplers on that team, like throughout the years, we were hard and we were good, and that's it for me as a Meath man. Hard and good.
Timmy, dirty as well? No? Yes?
Well, I tell you what I thought about the article. I first of all, it was the best thing I read all weekend. That was the first thing. I thought it was brilliant that a former player would stand up and defend his manager with the way he did. Okay? So I really loved the fact that Jerry McEntee put his name to the article and wrote the point. Secondly, they were great facts. Jimmy Barry Murphy, I mean, there's a question in Cork about, was he kicked out of football by Kerry? I mean, that has been asked in Cork, Joe, for many, many years. I mean, Jerry's been nice here and saying it was one Munster final. It was every game against Kerry. They dragged him and basically like forced him out of football because of the abusive treatment he got. There's a very famous clip of the late Poche, God rest his soul, knocking Denny Allen out in a Munster match, and the referee giving him a chat and telling him meet for a cup of coffee afterwards, right? So I loved this piece, and I just thought McEntee was really honest about his affection, his devotion, and his respect and pride for Sean Boylan. Secondly, I would say, is that Sean Boylan was an exceptional manager, and I would agree with Hector here. An exceptional manager, and one of the all-time great managers in GA. In my view, Mick O'Dwyer was the greatest manager of all time, right? Because of his record and what he did over longevity with, and the innovation he brought again. But Sean Boylan is in the top echelons of GA managers. Were Meath a dirty team? I mean, I was, watching sadly when they beat Cork in the 86 or the 87 and 88 finals, right? And they, as the men that Hector called out there from Colin O'Rourke back to Mick Lyons, big, strong, physical men. But what Boylan did brilliantly, he took the physique and he took the talent and he made the team give the best of what they could give. Yes, they were hard. There's no questions. They were hard. Yes, they were tough to play against. Cork eventually beat them in 1990 as part of their double winning thing. And it was a big thing for Cork to get over Meath because they had lost two of the finals to them. But I wouldn't say they were dirty. I would never say they were dirty. I would say you would earn it against Meath. I'd say they were very physical. I would say that on occasions, individuals might off the ball do things that I would deem unacceptable, but other counties do that as well. So would I say they were a dirty team? No. I would say that Sean Boylan saw what he had in the resources. He had great talent. Like, people look at Colin O'Rourke. a phenomenal footballer. I mean, people talk about a big, strong man. He was a phenomenal footballer. One of the all-time greats from my point of view. So I would say, Joe, no, I would not say they were dirty. No, I would not say that they played the game in any other way than the way they played it, which was hard, fair, fast, and using the resources that were available for them. They beat Cork in 87 and 88, as I said. We beat them in 1990, and it was a big landmark for Cork. And, the Sean Boylan documentary, showed him in a positive light. But in my view, he deserves to be shown in a positive light, because I had the pleasure of meeting him on a couple of occasions, and Jerry McEntee calls it out, a true gentleman. Sean Boylan, I wouldn't know Sean Boylan well. I met him as in a couple of occasions and had some time in his company, but an absolute true gentleman, and doesn't deserve to be tagged as somebody who built a dirty team. He built a very successful team who were hard, who were fair, who were difficult to play against, and that would be my credit to Sean Boylan and to Meath in the 80s and 90s.
Okay, well, if Cork man's defending it that strongly, then that maybe
I'm happy.
puts it to
I'm
bed,
happy with that.
Though with Marie Crowe last week on the back of Tommy Conlon's piece, tweeted a link to a chat she had with Liam Hayes a few months ago, and I mean, maybe Tommy's not here to, I don't even say defend himself really, but just to respond, because we're not talking about life and death here. We're talking about a football team and how physical they were. But maybe this is the kind of thing, and I didn't see the documentary you'd want in it. So Liam Hayes was talking about the approach to certain games, and he said in all sorts of sports you get a person who's a kingmaker, a miracle worker, who's got the magic dust in his pocket. I remember before one big game in Croke Park, we had a team meeting, and the team meeting comprised of all the big hits that we had made in games over the previous 4 or 5 years. The hits were played for 15, 20 minutes, and the music to it was Another One Bites the Dust. That was the meeting. Another One Bites the Dust, and 30, 40 guys being poleaxed by Meath players, and then we left the room. It was as simple as that. We knew we had to do what we had to do the next day, every man. So,
No, but hang on a second, Joe, right? That's fine, but saying poleaxe, but I'm telling you, a good shoulder.
Could be a poleaxing, of course, shoulder. Yeah.
No, but the game has gone to this now where we can't, referee's definition of a good strong hit or a good shoulder, a good slap tackle. A slap tackle, a grown man or hitting a good slap tackle in with one hand. I mean, the game is gone. We may as well go around the pillows here. I mean, the hits were the hits. Meath were the way they played. That documentary should celebrate Sean Boylan, not be all tied up about this and about that. It got be with the days when Dublin and Meath would play on a Leinster final. It was the biggest ticket in Gaelic football. We need big tickets in Gaelic football. We need to get back to those great days when people could take on Dublin. And I will never forget those mighty days, those days.
Yeah.
But as you say, Timmy, Sean Boylan is an Irishman, a very positive man, and when you've met him, you've met somebody very, very special. So I don't think that any of this crack of Tommy Conlon writing bits about this, that, and the other should be even engaged with. That documentary was a celebration of one of Ireland's greatest men, sports managers, and GAA men.
Okay.
Joe.
Okay.
Joe,
Done. Case closed.
Just one final point. Okay, just about Liam Hayes' comment, right? I remember coaching teams, and we'd have videos of how we played them the previous time and taking out their best players, and in basketball, how we would try and negate their best players. So coaches do these things, and teams do these things. Again, what I would say is Meath were very hard to play against. They were very tough, physically, mentally, and they were very competitive. And they had a great manager. And that's what we should remember about that era, not anything else, really.
Okay.
Exactly.
We've a few bits. We're not going to get through them all, I suspect. I should just briefly mention, because I know you picked out a couple of GAA pieces, and I suspect, Hector, you're a big snooker fan. We won't get time to talk about Luka Modric in any detail, but he's got a new book out, and it's just amazing story in it. So he's 10 years, sorry, he was actually 6 at the time. So his new book, he details it here with Ollie Holt. It's worth looking into if you're interested in Modric, who's obviously been this phenomenal player, Ballon d'Or winner, one of the few to win it in the Messi-Ronaldo area. And he just recounts, he had this amazing relationship with his grandfather, Luka, same name as him. They were all amazed at how paternal and loving the grandfather was with his first grandchild, Luka Modric. Start of the 90s, old Yugoslavia was breaking up. Croatia had declared independence, the war was coming. Serbs had begun to take control of the mountainous area where Modric's grandfather lived. atmosphere tense and dangerous. Most of the residents left. Modrić's grandparents stayed. So he's out one morning and he comes across the wrong people. They came across Modrić's grandfather Luka as he was leading the flock of sheep and goats into the pasture. They ran at him, screaming, shouting, filled with bloodlust. "Who are you? What are you doing here? This is Serbian land," the report says they yelled at him. Then they mowed him down with a machine gun at close range. They left him there, drove on to continue their rampage. They killed 6 other people that day. Modrić's father found his own father, brought him back. Luka Modrić remembers the whole situation vividly. He was 6 years old at the time. There's a photo of him with his grandfather when he was young. And, geez, you'd no idea. Luka Modrić even says he doesn't like doing interviews and staying out of the limelight. He's done this on account of having the book. That's on page 76, 77. So it's amazing insight into Luka Modrić. That's in the Mail on Sunday. Quick mention of that. The snooker. Hector, I presume you are a snooker fan.
Oh, I love my snooker, and I think snooker became a global sensation once more last Friday night. Never have we seen such drama at the Crucible with the 2 semi-finals happening. I mean, there was drama, there was tension, there was everything on both matches. And Ronnie O'Sullivan, and it's just been bonkers watching Ronnie O'Sullivan over the last couple of weeks. He's definitely a colourful character. And if you watch that match with Selby throughout the sessions, he went from looking at his cue, looking underneath his jacket, nearly throwing away his cue underneath it. He said he'd lost his cue action. He hit the table a rap at one stage with his knuckles, and you could hear it throughout the auditorium when he was losing it. Now, he lost it loads of times throughout that game. Selby had him on the rack. And Tommy Conlon, incidentally, writes about it. It was an incredible shifting. He says a semi-final night of great escape leaves experts baffled on a surreal night of drama and shifting fortunes at the Crucible. It's underneath Colin O'Rourke's piece in the Sunday Indo, and it's incredible. Late on Friday night, with the World Championship semi-final in the balance, Ronnie O'Sullivan looked like he was about to go off the reservation. He looked as if he was going to throw it all away in a fit of reckless abandon. If you hear the rap he gave the table when he missed a simple red, it was just incredible. And to think that he's leading now against Karen Wilson. And then we have to think of Anthony McGill on the other table. It was just, snooker needed an injection of brilliance, and where we all, instead of flicking through the channels from Eurosport to 142 on BBC Two, and then you stay with it for 10 minutes, millions and millions of people stayed with snooker for the first time ever last Friday night, and it was an absolute treat.
I was watching Eric Donovan, so I missed it, and I could see Twitter lighting up, and I thought, it can't be that good. But reading Tommy Conlon's piece, and I think it's a great piece, actually. You know, Pearl, Tommy got a kick in about 5 minutes ago from U2. And
No. Oh, that's fair enough. It's a good piece.
It's a really good, he captures the madness of it. So it seems like with O'Sullivan against Selby in the semi-final, that Selby intimidates him, or certainly won't be intimidated by O'Sullivan the way others are. Like Tommy writes, O'Sullivan has never been able to intimidate Selby. In fact, Selby has been able to intimidate him. The Rocket wants to play fast. Selby has the stamina and willpower to sap the resistance of any opponent. And this was best at 33 frames. And early on, Tommy Conlon quotes Stephen Hendry saying, "This is going to be a real test of Ronnie's patience and Ronnie's will to win." And it seemed like it played out that way, Hector, that Ronnie playing against a Selby type who will grind you down, and there'll be safety exchanges and interminably long frames. O'Sullivan can get frustrated by that and just crack in some way and go a bit mad in some ways. And it seems like he sort of did a few times in this frame. Like there's quotes from John Parrott about one of Ronnie's shots. That shot selection has gone out the window. Bizarre, said Ken Doherty. Like it seems like at times the commentary team were looking at O'Sullivan saying he's cracked here.
There were so many simple pots that O'Sullivan missed. He would pot them with his eyes closed. It was madness to think that Ronnie couldn't get his action going. I mean, Ronnie had stirred it all up 2 days before that when he said, "Look at me, I'm 44 years of age, and with all those young players coming through, sure, I'd have to lose an arm and a leg before they beat me."
What did you think of that, Hector? Because I know Ken Doherty took a dim view of that.
I don't mind him saying something like that. Maybe he likes having a go at things. He likes saying stuff, but who's coming through? There may be one or two coming through. Is there a raft of them coming through? Should he have said it? That's just Ronnie O'Sullivan. He's no more than Roy Keane when he goes on the soccer punditry. He's gold dust, and Ronnie says what he thinks, but he had stoked it up a little bit. I think Jimmy White over on Eurosport does his bit. I think Steve Davis and Ken Doherty are in a nice little place there. They just get it going. It's all nice and it's all harmony, and it's like they have a lovely little picnic set up, and they just say the right things. Ronnie says the wrong things, but Ronnie is the greatest snooker player I've ever seen. He's just an amazing talent. But to think then, in the last couple of frames, I think Ronnie rattled off 230 or 40 odd points. Selby looked as if the life and the blood was drawn out of him. In the last frame, or the second last frame, O'Sullivan was snookered on the pink, and instead of lying up beside it, he rattles the pink round the table for the crack in the snooker.
Why did he do that? Why did he do that? Because Tommy Conlon talks about that as well. What was that about?
He just can't take it. He said Selby tucked him up behind the green ball. He had an escape shot, a chance at damage limitation. Instead, he smashed a hit and hope shot into the reds. I don't know what's going on through Ronnie's mind at the moment from Mark Hendry. Later in the frame, trailing by 6 points, he played, this is the one, a senseless shot on the pink. What has he played there since Dennis Taylor? Another couple of wild misses followed. Selby took the frame. I mean, I just think it was him lashing out. I just think it's not the way Ronnie plays. Selby from Leicester, just as there's no life in him. He's pasty face at the best of time. I mean, Selby had a go at him after the match saying he was disrespectful in the way he tried to get out of snookers. But it was pure drama. It was brilliant. And Ronnie O'Sullivan is leading Kyron Wilson in a world final. So at the end of the day, nothing matters what Selby thinks. Ronnie's still there. Kyron Wilson's an interesting player. McGill on the other side of the table, there were colossal struggles, 17-16, 17-16 in both matches. And as I said, snooker got an injection, a global injection on the world stage the other day in sporting terms. And I can't wait I'd love to get back playing a frame this week, because it's a long time since I used to throw the bags in the back of the behind these bushes behind St. Pat's, and me and Tommy Tiernan would rattle down to the embassy. And there was a time, Joe, when I was rattling in 76s and 80s regularly.
Is that right?
Every week.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's a waste of youth.
I've been lucky enough to play a few of the boys in challenges and sell bits and pieces with Ken and Roddy. I met Alex Higgins once as well. What a player. Wow. But we all used to love snooker. We all think we're great pool players, but there's nobody better than Ronnie.
And come here, whatever became of Tiernan, is he all right?
Tiernan's good. We have a new podcast starting in a couple of weeks.
Oh, do you?
I know all about it.
So Tommy signs off this piece at Conlon, not Tiernan. If you missed this and you want to kind of catch up in it and live through it in a way by saying and making the point that O'Sullivan will draw level with Steve Davis and Ray Reardon with his 6th world title if he wins today. He's currently 13 to 8 frames up. Timmy, you were coming in there?
Yeah, I just thought it was the first time in 35 years since the Taylor-Davis thriller in 85, the final, that snooker was back at his best. I mean, it was a must-watch event on Friday night. And for me, I think, in fairness to Tommy Conlon, I thought he captured Ronnie O'Sullivan in the article. You know, I just thought he captured the genius of the guy, the flaws of the guy, the frustrations of the guy, the talent. And I thought that Tommy Conlon captured it. You know, even through the comments that were made by Taylor and John Power and Hendry and the TV commentary snippets he gave us throughout. So I thought he wrote a great piece about it. I mean, to me, watching it, you know, it was like watching Ronnie O'Sullivan is like, you know, the sort of infamous saying that form is temporary and class is permanent. That's the way he goes on, especially against Selby. He just seems to lose interest. It just seems to get too slow, too pedantic.
Yeah.
He just seems to kind of just get out of the zone. And then he comes back and, you know, and when there's a question, is he the best of all time? Hector thinks he is, obviously. To me, I thought Hendry was brilliant.
He's certainly regarded as the most talented of all time, which is slightly different to best.
I would say himself and Hendry and Steve Davis were the 3 best. And I think he's the most talented. To me, with Alex Higgins. Higgins was also exceptionally talented. And you know, so I would think that, but Sullivan is definitely, you could give him the most talented accolade. And right now, if he wins today, he'll be at the top of the 3 with the others that you mentioned. So it was great to watch snooker for the first time, as I said, in my recollection, since the night we stayed up until all hours and see Dennis Taylor pot that infamous black against Davis after Davis having a couple of chances to win it. It definitely puts snooker back in the global stage for a period of time, you know.
Do you know the nice thing, lads, is we're giving out about the commentary, the live crowd atmosphere feed being fed into the matches. The beauty of watching the snooker at the moment is you can't get away from the player when his mind is melting. Normally, the director would say, cut away to the audience for somebody clapping or fiddling with their headphones, cut away to the audience. So they're staying on Ronnie's face, and he's lost it.
Right.
There's nowhere to cut away to. So it's pure drama, and he lost it so many times during that. Secondly, a little thing I found out during the week, if you're all into snooker this week, you got to read Bill Werbeniuk, the great Canadian snooker player, like Kirk Stevens. Was a guy called Bill Werbeniuk. He was larger than life, very, very big man, but his Wikipedia page reads better than Ronnie Wood or any of the Rolling Stones rock and roll Wikipedias. This lad used to drink 17 or 20 pints during a match. This is rock and roll snooker. If you want to read something very, very quirky, have a look at Bill Werbeniuk's Wikipedia page to show how a man could play snooker after having 25 pints and go on and win matches. Those were great times. I think snooker's back because of Ronnie O'Sullivan. And again, snooker needs it.
Fellas, we are right out of time, as I suspected we would be. We didn't get to a fair few stories we wanted to, but we'll have to leave it there. Hector, good man, thanks very much. Enjoy the snooker tonight. And United, geez, you'll either be crying or a very happy man tonight.
I have a few people coming over to the house now, a couple of cans, and we'll be in good form by 8 o'clock tonight when we see Mason Greenwood, left foot, right foot, back of the net.
Timmy McCarthy, thanks very much to you as well, Timmy. See you, lads.
Cheers, Joe. Pleasure as always.
Slán, Timmy.
Cheers,
Slán, Joe.
The Sunday Papers on Off the Ball.